Good morning everyone, how are you today? I thought I'd come on and just share my ink journals that I have and how I sort of go about documenting my ink swatching. Now I've got two sitting here. This is my old one that I first started with, and this is the one that I started with you all when I started my YouTube channel. So we might do the new one first and then we'll go over to the old one. So I like using the endless recorder notebooks. The two that I have here have the Tomoe River paper in them. I believe it's 68 GSM paper, but they are sort of coming through with a new paper called Regalia paper, which is really good quality paper and shows up sheening, shading and shimmer as well with inks. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So, but both of mine have got the old Tomoe River paper in them. So I've got my trusty Emerald of Chicken sticker there from Goulet Pens. I haven't filled out the table of contents yet. I usually kind of come in and do that at the end. So we've started out with just some basic stamping of ink bottles and swatching. At first I thought I was going to do this kind of thing. You'll see I chop and change a fair bit. So I would do the little ink bottle swatch and then put what pen I've currently got it in. Then I started putting like my currently inked pens there and what ink I had in them. And I think this is when I sort of started writing out with you all. I believe this is when I started my channel, the 22nd of September last year. That's when I started writing things out with you all. Yep, there's my currently inked October 2022 list. So how many pens are in it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 inked pens for there. More ink bottle swatching. Oh, and it's continued over here. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So I used 18 pens for the month of October. That's when I was filling a pen with ink and using it until I wrote it dry, and then I would ink up a new pen with a new ink. And that was kind of the first time I'd done that. Claire over at the Ginger Ninja does that quite often. She only has, say 1 to 3 pens inked at any one time. And she just writes and writes and writes until she feels that fill in that pen, and then she'll ink up a new pen with a new ink. So I thought that was an interesting sort of experiment for me, because I wanted to see just how much I used my pens, I guess, and how much ink I was going through as well. So that was 18 pens for October. This is when I did some ink swatching with you and showed you some new pens, I believe. This was my pen that I got for my birthday last year. It's a Pilot Vanishing Point in the matte black. I love that pen, and I also got a birthday ink, Noodler's Black Swan in Australian Roses. I love that ink as well. So I'll put more currently inked. This, I don't know what I was doing here, but anyway, swatching some inks. Then I swatched all of these Ferris Wheel Press inks with you. These are my Ferris Wheel Press bottled inks, and these are some samples that I got. More new pens. I ordered this set of 5 fountain pens off Amazon, and they arrived, and I inked some of those up with you. And then I got Twisby Go and Pilot Kakuno from Pulp Addiction here in Australia. These were some Robert Oster ink samples that I did with you. These are my bottles of Robert Oster inks that I swatched with you. Oh, and this is when I did the green ink swatching. See what I mean? Like I chop and change. Like I've got ink bottles here that looks quite neat, and then I do this kind of thing where it's really messy and all over the place. But it's honestly, to be perfectly honest, it's just whatever takes me on the day and what I feel like doing. So these were a lot of ink samples that I had, and I broke it up into 3 videos. You can go back. I think I set up a playlist for that. So I did it in 3 different parts because there were just so many of them. This Tassia Midori, I ended up getting a bottle of that for Christmas. I just loved it so much. So, oh, and I put a little tab on there too, so I know that that's where I swatched my green inks. This was part 2. See, I've done that different again to the page before. Look. So, and we all decided that that is not a Diamine ink, that the Styx Valley Green is actually a Van Diemen's ink, and it was mislabeled. So, and see, this was ink swatching. It's different again. This is actually my bottles of green ink that I had at the time. I'm a bit of a green girl. I love green. Now for November I decided to do more of a progress report, sort of a currently inked progress report. Chris Sanders over on her channel, she does this every month, and I love the way she does it because it sort of gives you a better idea of getting to know what inks work in what pens. And some pens write drier than others, some pens write wetter than others, and of course there's different inks that suit that. So it's about getting to know your pens and your ink in, I guess, more of an in-depth sort of way. And obviously I wasn't very constructive with my criticism because they're all sort of A's and B's. That was my November currently inked. And this is where I did some ink samples from the Desk Bandit. They very kindly sent me some little mini samples that I swatched with all of you, and they're just the tiniest little things, so I can't quite get my dip pen into them to do a writing sample, but I swatched the inks and I really loved this Troublemaker Milky Ocean. I've still got that on my wish list, so that was beautiful. But you know, after I did that, I decided, I think I'd gone back and done that I'd done this previously. I decided to tip all the ink out and just like do splashes everywhere, and it looked great on this page, but I'd already swatched these previously, so as you can see it's come through, so I've kind of ruined the next page. But anyway, this is when I decided to do I was looking for like a brown ink, but something that sort of, I don't know, said coffee to me. And there's a few on the market. There's the Robert Oster Cafe Crema, Colourverse Coffee Break, and the Robert Oster Toffee. And I ended up liking this Robert Oster Toffee the most, so I ended up getting a bottle of that. It's a really lovely ink. Oh, see, that was when I swatched these and I thought I was actually recording and I wasn't, so that's why I had to go back to that other page over here and do it again and record it with you. It happens all the time, believe it or not. I think I hit record and I don't, and then I have to go back and do everything again. So this was a giveaway prize from Bookbinders Design in Melbourne. It was an IG giveaway, and it was a Warringal ink set of the Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde, and really lovely colours. For those of you that don't know about Warringal inks, you can actually mix them. So some of them, they have all these different series, but this particular one you started out with this one here, and then they gave you this little bottle of, I don't know what it was, and you mixed it into the second bottle and you got this purple colour. It was a lot of fun to play with, actually. Oh, that's when I was just sort of trying out ideas for Christmas cards and envelopes and how to write on them. And I think that was a stub nib, and that was a medium nib. My bottles of Noodler's ink. I think that was one of those things where I thought I was swatching with you all again and I'd hit record and I hadn't. So that video never came to fruition. It's my December 2022 currently inked pens. Very sort of Christmassy sort of colours. Wondrous Winterberry, Sparkling Champagne, Misguided Mistletoe, California Teal, well not that Christmassy I guess, Poinsettia, Holly, Purple Bow, Candy Cane, Peppermint, Roaring Patina Black. It's not really Christmassy either, but fun. This is when I decided to swatch a whole heap of samples that I'd had for like years, basically. So they were sort of all reds and pinks and purples and oranges and colours like that. So, and I put one of those little pink sort of tabs there so I know that I've swatched all of those there. And I can go back to it. Oh, more currently inked for December. Oh, that's right. I think I did this with you all. I wrote it out and I did, I thought I'd put Graphon Faber-Castell Moss Green and it actually wasn't. It was Robert Oster Peppermint. So I had to go in and amend that. It's continued over the page. This was an ink swap that I did with pen friend TB. And she sent me 12 very generous samples of ink. So I swatched all of those with you as well. And I've been trying to write when I record or upload a video, so later on down the track I can sort of go back to it and refer to it. Oh, this is the fountain pen inventory. And you'll see occasionally I've got blank pages, but I'll go back and use those at some stage. This was an order from the Desk Bandit for their 5th birthday celebration. This Robert Oster was an exclusive ink that they did with the Desk Bandit for their 5th birthday celebration called the Great Owl, and it's just the most beautiful ink. It's like a lilac come grey colour. There's lots of shading in it. It's really, really pretty. I'll show it to you. Hopefully you can see it. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous colour. So, and I bought a bottle of this Roaring Clingers Solferino because I've had it in my stash for ages. Yeah, and I swatched it and I thought, yeah, I really love that one. I've written a B next to it saying that I bought a bottle of it. And these other 3 were gifts that came with my order from the Desk Bandit, so I swatched those with you. That Robert Oster Torquay is gorgeous. It's such a pretty blue. And then I did ink swatching with some samples from Pen Frame SS. That's actually Sarah over at... she used to be called House of Ezra, but I know she's had a name change, so I'll have to try and put a link to her channel down below. But she sent me these very nicely curated ink samples. And then I swatched my Christmas gifts with you. That Robert Oster Honeybee is beautiful. I've got it in a pen at the moment and really enjoying using it. And I was on the lookout for a yellow ink for quite a while. I wanted something that you could still see on the page in a medium nib that looked like a yellow ink, because many of them you put into a medium nib and you can barely see them on the page, whereas that one's a really beautiful honey sort of colour. and my Just Turnings unicorn horn pen that I got from Stephen at Just Turnings. I showed you all that, and I inked it with my new ink Colourverse Gravity Wave. And then I also got for Christmas a TWSBI Eco in the Royal Jade and Rose Gold, and I inked that with my new ink Tassie Amadori. And then I got the TWSBI Swipe as well. That was my first TWSBI Swipe, and I've actually really been enjoying using that. It's a little bit less than the TWSBI Eco pens, but it still has a really lovely nib on it. I got mine with a broad nib. Blank pages, because as you can see there's been some bleed through there from the inks on the previous page, but as I said, I can go back and fill these pages in later at a later date. And this is where I shared with you, I had this crazy idea that I'm going to ink up every single fountain pen that I have, and it worked out to be 51 fountain pens, which was a little bit surprising to me. I didn't realise I had that many, and inked them all up with different inks and tried to create like this rainbow effect. Jane over at Fountain Pens, Inks and More, I believe, she does this quite a bit, so that was fun to do actually. My rainbow is not perfect, by the way, so, but it was really good to do. I haven't written, I've actually written one of the pens dry, and some of them are almost written dry, so I'll go through those with you at a later date. And then I didn't do this with you, but I decided to do quite a few channels are doing their favourite inks of 2022, and these aren't inks that have been released in 2022, well mine aren't anyway, but they're inks that I decided that I really loved for 2022, and they're my favourites, and I keep reaching for them time and time again. I mean, the Gravity Wave I only just got for Christmas, but I'd had 2 samples of that previously, so I've used that before. That Palo de Roshizuku Suzuki is just the most gorgeous vibrant pink. It's just beautiful. Diamond Ancient Copper, it's my favourite brown ink. I like the Robert Oster Toffee as well, but this Ancient Copper, it just, I don't know what, it's just my favourite. I think I've got half a bottle left, and I can see myself replacing that, like once I finish that bottle, probably replacing it with a new bottle. This Graf von Faber-Castell Moss Green is a beautiful green, I really love it. And my Diatramentus Hyacinth ink, it's a really lovely blue, it flows really well, and the same with the Diatramentus Violet ink as well. So they're sort of like my 6 favourites, I guess. I could have gone on forever, but I thought, no Jane, just limit yourself to 6. Then I decided, in my previous ink journal, I've done all of my inks and things and swatches, but it hadn't been updated for quite a while. I've been a bit slack. So the other day, probably still see ink on my hands, I decided to go through and swatch all my bottles of ink. So I've divided them up into colours. These are all my bottles of green ink. Continued over on the page. Then I got my bottles of blue ink. I've actually, even though green's my favourite colour, I've got more bottles of blue ink than I have of green, which is interesting. Bottles of purple ink. I love all of those. Bottles of pink ink. I have more than I thought actually. Bottles of red ink. And these are the bottles of yellow, orange or brown ink. This Monteverde Scotch Brown though, I swatched it here, but I actually threw it out after I swatched it because I'd noticed that it had slime through it, and you can't put that in a pen. You'll wreck your pen. So that's the first bottle of ink I've ever had go slimy on me, and I was really disappointed because it's a lovely brown colour, but clearly there was something wrong with it, so I've had to throw it away. So yeah, but in 7 years or 8 years of using fountain pens and ink, that's not too bad. These are the bottles of the grey and black ink, but this Diatramentis Blackberry I kind of messed up there. Then I swatched it back in the pinks. So, but all these other ones are like greys and blacks. So as you can see, this Robert Oster Desk Bandit exclusive, the Great Owl, it looks like it's got more of a mauve colour here, but it's like a grey as well. So I put it there. I love that Time Mine Earl Grey. So, and that's it. That's it for that ink journal. So, what page are we up to? Page 80 already with that. But I mean, as I said, I haven't got things on these pages because of the ink sort of coming through the page. But it doesn't mean I can't go back and use it. I've actually thought about sticking another piece of paper on top of that so I can use the page. So that's that one. That's my new one. And this is my old one. Now this one really is all over the place, so, and I haven't updated the table of contents. It's kind of been abandoned. So this is how I started doing my ink swatches, and I'd write beside them if I had a bottle of this particular ink. A lot of these are samples as well. I had it kind of all mixed in together, whereas this one I've just sort of kept as my bottles of ink and any samples that I swatch with you, but this was kind of everything. See, and I've got blank pages in between, obviously, to come back and add more to. These are my blue ones. More blank pages. Purple and pink sort of inks. Pink, red inks. Orange, brown. Yeah. And then I sort of like started a little wish list of inks that I wanted to try. I managed to get some of these off the list. I've got the Sailor Shikiori Yamadori. What else did I get off this? I've got... no, I haven't got many of those. Oh, I've got the Roaring Klingers Alt Goldgren. See, I think about things for a fair while before I actually buy them. And this is the Chris Sanders method, how she does her currently inked for the month and then does a progress report. So I'd started doing that in August 2021. That was like pen inventory, new pen days, and then I did 30 inks 30 days challenge, and I did myself a list of what I needed for it, and started ticking that off. More progress reports, and then started November's but didn't finish it. There was a fair bit of that. I think we were moving house at the time, so he drew up December's and never even got around to doing it. More new pen days and just writing about them. Oh, and see, this is January last year. I decided to just do a quick write down of my currently inked pens. Did January, obviously didn't do February. Did March. Then jumped to August. July currently inked. August, see, once again drawn up, not finished. Oh, then I've got more. Oh, and this is where I decided to do ink swatches in like the ink families. So I did all the Diamine inks and all the Robert Oster inks and Pilot or Shizuku inks and that sort of thing. So these are all the Diamine inks that I swatched together. Or Robert Oster inks. And some of these inks I've actually, they were either samples, or if I did have bottles of them and they weren't really working for me, I've passed on to other people. Pilot or Shizuku inks, see I've got 3 there, but I know I've also got Konpeki, so that's the thing. This all sort of fell by the wayside. I started it, but then I didn't finish it. Diatramentus inks, Lamy, I've only got 1 Lamy ink. Monteverde, these are the only 2 I have now. The California Teal and the DC Super Show Blue, because that Scotch Brown was the one that got the slime in it and I had to throw away. Mont Grappa, Mont Blanc. I actually sold that bottle of ink. It was lovely. It was a very, very expensive ink. It's by far the most expensive bottle of ink I've ever bought. But I just didn't love it, and so I sold it. Noodler's ink. See, I've got a lot more Noodler's ink now. It hasn't been updated. Graph from Faber-Castell, Pelican, Edelstein, Chez Herbin, they're the 1670 anniversary inks. Van Diemen's, I only got 2 Van Diemen's inks. Sale Shikiori, see I've got 2 of those. I've only got 1 of the Organic Studios, Blue Nitrogen. I love this. I know it's a crazy ink. It has a lot of sheening, but I just love it. And people sort of complain that it takes forever to dry, but I like it. Now this was the first time I attempted to do the 30 inks 30 days challenge, and I went back and I filled all this in, and that was all well and good, but in the beginning I kind of bit off more than I could chew, and I started doing all of this every day, and then it just got too tiresome to try and keep up with. So my little girl at the time was helping me pick my inks each day. So I started out really well, started out strong, didn't finish strong. So, and I think I kept it up for about halfway through, and then I just decided, oh, this is too much. So, see, I started sampling but didn't go back and write. And then I've drawn up spaces to do the rest and didn't finish it, so I could, you know, rub those out, I guess. Oh, and that was when I was doing a test as to how I was going to do it. I think that's it. So as you can see, that was how I started out with my ink journal, and it's all over the shop. But that's okay. It's alright. You live and learn. And then this is the one that I use with all of you. So I know some people have got like just the most amazing setups, and they're so organized, and you know, it's probably looks a little bit different from this, but I just sort of think each to their own, you know, everyone has different ways of doing things. So yeah, that's it. That's all I have for you today. Put in the comments below, how do you sort of record your inks? Do you have an ink journal? I find they're a really good reference tool for going back and just sort of seeing what you have and remembering what you have, because sometimes you might have your inks in a drawer or on a shelf, and even though you've got them there, you kind of forget what's in each of them and what colours you've got, and so it's a good reference tool so you don't double up too much on colours as well. I tend to gravitate to the same colours, so I have to be very careful, especially now that I've got quite a few bottles of ink, that I'm not buying something that is really similar to what I already have. Anyway, I will say goodbye for now. Take care, everyone. Have a great day wherever you are, and take care, and I'll see you back here next time. Okay, bye.